Hello folks, Anahita Rao. Today I thought let me speak about another event that is occurring in June, and this is of course Saturn's movement. Saturn begins its retrograde movement on June the 4th at 1 degree of Aquarius and ends this on October the 23rd at 24 degrees of Capricorn in the nakshatra of Dhanishta. Yeah, so let's get into this. Now, Saturn retrograde periods are generally what we consider a time of karmic rebalancing. The 5 days before and after a retrograde phase are the most potent, where events can easily manifest past actions. Their harsh consequences may surface. On the other hand, past actions, including selfless actions, responsible actions, their consequences could also resurface and could be rewarded. Now, because Saturn energy is intensified and internalized during a retrograde, it can be felt as a time of limitation, restriction, anxiety, fear. And you will especially feel this if you are in a Saturn dasha or a Saturn antardasha. But remember, this is not a unique event, as every year Saturn goes retrograde for approximately 4 months, right? And what does retrograde mean anyway? Let's talk about that for a bit. It does not mean that the planet is now going backward. All planets revolve around the sun, including the Earth. So whenever an outer planet comes very close to the Earth, then it appears as if it's going retrograde, because from our perspective, it seems closer. But in fact, it's not going backward. We only perceive it. We only perceive it that way. Now, because it's closer to the Earth, it's regarded as very strong. The calculation is denoted as Chastaval. In other words, the impact that it has on us is stronger, more intensified, especially on the internal mental level, because retrograde is internalized energy. You can also see Chastaval as our stamina. Our stamina, because it gives us the ability to make efforts with more forceful results, more impactful results. And in fact, when a planet is retrograde, you will be put into circumstances where you do have to try more than once to get the results that you desire. And that's another reason why retrograde planets are regarded as more powerful. Because ultimately the results that you do get will be stronger than when the planet is direct. For the simple reason that you've had the time and the opportunity to try a few times and therefore correct and recorrect your efforts, your path, your decisions, right? It allows for a chance to reflect and redo. And usually, not always, but The more you try something, the better results you get. But some of these results can manifest as strange, unorthodox, unpredictable, I always look at, when a planet is going retrograde, I always look at the aspects that it makes when it goes retrograde, and then also when it goes direct, to understand how we will be impacted by this particular retrograde phase. And so I'm going to look at that, and then I'm going to speak about each ascendant, right? You can also see the transit from your moon, and I, in fact, highly recommend that, especially with Saturn transits. Now, this retrograde period will start with a very it could be a very pessimistic, very negative type of thinking, but it will end on a very positive note with clarity and with decisiveness. Saturn retrograde 2022 is square Mercury. It's in an angle to Mercury. This can cause confusion. It can cause negative thinking. It can cause communication problems, because we're talking about Mercury. You may make mistakes. You may forget things when you're communicating. And for this reason, it's not a good time to make important decisions, because it will be difficult to see the picture, the big picture. If someone pressures you for an important decision or to sign important documents, to see if you can defer this where possible. There can also be kind of like rigid thinking. You may come across that in yourself, or you may come across that in others. And there, as such, there might be difficulty communicating your thoughts. So arguments are also possible. And you may be seeing the worst of any situation. And for this reason, you may feel a bit like maybe depressed, maybe isolated at this time. But if you keep in mind that the negative influence on your thinking is because of this retrograde phase, then you will cope with it a lot better. Now, the fixed signs will be impacted the most. So, because Mercury is in Taurus and Saturn is in Aquarius in the beginning degrees. So that's what Taurus, Scorpio, Aquarius, and Leo. You will feel it the most. Certainly in the beginning of the retrograde phase. And especially if you're going through the dasha of Mercury or Saturn, or have planets in fixed signs. Saturn is also aspecting Venus and Rahu in Aries, as well as Scorpio at this time. So that negative thinking may be related to relationships as well as money issues at this time, right? Because of that aspect on Venus. And with Rahu and Venus in Aries, this period, it may lead to affairs and excess of some kind in relationship matters and even money matters. Saturn retrograde phases actually offer us an opportunity to make adjustments before they crystallize as new structures in your life. So it's best not to force change at this time that you want, but to adapt to the changing conditions. And a well-considered, patient approach is best at this time and will bring good results. So let's before I start talking about the ascendants and each sign, let's talk a little bit about the active aspect when Saturn goes direct on October 23rd at 24 degrees of Capricorn. So it's going to retreat back into Capricorn. And this direct phase is going to be a complete contrast to when it goes retrograde. Because at this point, Saturn will make an exact trine, a 5-9 aspect, to an exalted Mercury in Virgo. Now, this auspicious trine aspect, when Saturn moves direct in October, will remove the barriers and the blocks from your way that you may have experienced during this retrograde cycle. And this aspect will help you take decisions that are logical and that are free from illusions. Because the aspect to the exalted Mercury suggests very clear thinking at this time. It's also a good time for sustained mental work like studying, making important life decisions, for serious discussions, for negotiations, for business dealings. And with that common sense and an eye toward practical results, this is also a good time to make long-term plans and to sign contracts, especially those involving real estate, especially those involving stocks and shares. You can also be confident about making commitments to others at this time. And whatever you put your mind to should lead to permanent long-term results and achievements. Yeah, at this time. New friendships and partnerships should be lasting and dependable as well. And it's a good time to chat with mentors or like people that are more experienced to you, maybe elder to you, for advice or guidance. Yeah. And it could be a time when you're making decisions connected to whatever Mercury represents in your chart. So if you're feeling pressurized to do that at that, the beginning of the retrograde phase, I would say try to defer that as much as possible, because you might change your mind towards the direct phase, which is in October. Does it mean you have to wait till October? No, not necessarily, but at least till the challenging aspects have started to wane. So definitely not in June or in July. And of course it depends on what is represented by Capricorn and Aquarius in your chart, right? Because in July the 12th, Saturn will return to Capricorn. So that will change the picture entirely. Yeah. When it goes direct in October, Saturn will resume its 10th aspect to the sign of Libra, as we had been experiencing for the last couple of years. And at this time we have the Sun there, we have Venus there, we have Ketu there. So again, back to the relationships, it can suggest a clean break, it can suggest a separation from troubled relationships, once and for all at this time. This is especially the case if you were involved in secret affairs, difficult relationships, turbulent relationships, deceptive. Some kind of deception can come to the surface in relationships. Yeah, at this time. That Saturn direct in October will bring a final dissolution in relationships, a final decision, maybe. At both points, interestingly enough, if you look at it, when Saturn goes retrograde and when Saturn goes direct, Venus is caught in the nodal axis. When it goes direct in October, Sun is also debilitated with the combust Venus. And very much can combust, like they're within 1 degree of each other, so it's considered a war, along with Ketu in Libra. So again, suggesting a final dissolution in relationship matters. You will especially be impacted if you are Aries, Taurus, Libra, or Gemini, or if you are in a Saturn or nodal dasha. Yeah. And this is further emphasized by Saturn's transit in Dhanishta. So just a few words about Dhanishta. I've actually made a separate video on Saturn in Dhanishta, so I'll try and link it below. Dhanishta is what? Dhanishta is being in tune with the universe, being in tune with ourselves, being in tune with our environment, right? So you could come to that decision because by doing that reflection, you will say, okay, no, this doesn't work for me. This relationship doesn't work for me, for instance. And anyway, Dhanishta is a very fiercely independent nakshatra. When Saturn goes direct, it will be doing so back in Capricorn. And being that we're talking about Saturn in Capricorn, it goes into Leo Navamsha. So once again, it points to the emphasis being more so on our own goals and life path rather than pleasing others or on relationships. And of course, this is further denoted by that Rahu Ketu movement through Aries and Libra that has been ongoing. So, to understand how it will impact your sign, see what houses Saturn rules in your chart. You will be forced to reassess matters connected to those houses and complete that which you did not do when Saturn was moving through Capricorn. And of course, see what Capricorn and Aquarius, where they fall in your chart, to get a clue as to where you will be impacted. If this Saturn transit Capricorn or Aquarius, if it's making a trinal or Kendra connection to your own Saturn in your own chart, then it will be more impactful for you as well. Right? So for example, Saturn in your chart is in Taurus. It's making a trine connection with Capricorn, it's making a Kendra connection with Aquarius. So that's what I mean. Now, to see how it impacts you, read it from your ascendant and of course from your moon sign, which I think is more important. Aries, let's start with Aries as usual. Now for you, this is the 10th, 11th Lord transiting the 11th house and then reverting back to the 10th house. So you may return to changes that you implemented in your career and make some adjustments there. And with Jupiter's position in your 12th house at the moment, this may see you facing some unexpected expenses also. You could be integrating skills that you learnt through that Capricorn transit. It's also a good time to reconnect with the people that you met during the Capricorn transit, especially if this is related to career matters. You will likely be actually taking action to redo some career moves, reassess career goals. You may also have to deal with some unforeseen changes now. And actually it's a very good time to make those adjustments. Yeah. It's actually a good time to tie up any loose ends before you return to that 11th house, very auspicious Saturn transit in early 2023. And there could also be changes in your living situation because that Saturn resumed its aspect to the 4th house So you could be making some adjustments there also. Yeah. Taurus, what's happening for you? For you, it's the 9th, 10th Lord. So this could see you traveling or returning to some kind of higher education, because Saturn will be returning to your 9th house. It's a great time for reconnecting with your father or father-like figures in your life. Could be teachers, could be gurus. It's an excellent time for taking advice. You may be reassessing your values. And actually it's a good time to reassess those as well as career goals and see whether you're on the right path in life. You can also meet a mentor that will guide you with this at this time. But advice, yes, it's a good time to go back and take some advice and make some corrections. But I would say that the advice that you get at this time, wait till Saturn approaches that direct, or at least go back into Capricorn to see the viability of this advice. But remain accessible to all that counsel, to the knowledge, to the advice. And if you wanted to consult someone, wait till after Saturn goes direct, because then you will get very good advice, very insightful advice. And what you learn now with the retrograde phase could actually be used to accomplish career goals when Saturn goes back to Aquarius, your 10th house. With this aspect on the 3rd house, you may at this time face some strife, some challenges with your siblings. Yeah. So Gemini, what's happening for you? Gemini, for you, it's the 8th, 9th Lord, returning to the 8th house. Now, Saturn, of course, is friendly to your Lagna Lord, Mercury. So, but as I mentioned, it's making a tense aspect to Mercury in the beginning of the retrograde phase. So joint resources could go through sudden shifts now. 8th house is usually the past re-emerging in your life. It can bring up fears, it can bring up phobias, it can bring up obsessive thoughts. Relationships can be very difficult now. A troublesome relationship will break for once and for all. And career could also experience ups and downs, but when Saturn turns direct, you will arrive at the right solution for these matters in your life, whether it's relationship or whether it's career that gave you problems in the retrograde phase. Cancer, what's happening for you? Cancer, for you, it's the 7th, 8th Lord returning to the 7th house. Very important house. It stands not only for partnerships, but also status, achievements, foreign connections, travel, your own business. So relationships will again take a front center role, whether it's business, whether it's personal. Pay attention to your partner and their needs at this time. Cracks in relationships will come to the surface now. Some relationships as a result of this will break, but a more enriching relationship will come once Saturn goes direct. Depending on, of course, also what your dasha is promising. I would say don't listen to advice from others at this time, especially when it comes to relationships. Rather wait till Saturn moves direct to make important decisions in this regard. Leo, what's happening for you? It's your 6th, 7th Lord is returning to the 6th house. So it's a good time to reflect on your past actions. It's a good time to reassess your daily routines and make healthy changes. Health issues may get worse first, only to get resolved completely by the time that Saturn goes direct, especially if you change some of those routines. Saturn in the 6th house will instill strong endurance and the power to deal with all of these matters that come up also, especially being it's so dignified in Capricorn and not, sharing that space with any other planet. It could be fights, it could be battles, it could be health issues, it could be just problems of all kinds, and they will get resolved. If you have the chance, do some voluntary work at this time, any sort of selfless service, because that's what the 6th house is, to kind of like balance the energy a bit because of the problems that might come. 6th house malefics also, though they're good for resolving problems, they can make you live in your head too much. So perhaps do something physical to get out of your head. Yeah. Virgo, what's happening for you? Virgo, for you, this retrograde movement sees Saturn returning to your 5th house. You could be returning to something that you started when Saturn was in Capricorn to make some changes here. And Saturn going retrograde can make your intellect mature enough to take the right decisions. But if you can, wait till towards the end of the retrograde phase to make important final decisions. Because it's your 6th lord connecting to your Lagna lord Mercury, this can also be a time to settle old decisions. You may be dealing with situations where you will get a chance to settle old debts. Yeah, literal, figurative, old debts. Confidence can, however, take a hit. At this time, you may be going through a period of low feelings. 5th house is also intelligence, it's devotion, it's, so therefore a good remedy is spiritual practices, maybe reading scriptures. Libra, what's happening for you? For Libra, Saturn is transiting your 4th house. This will force you to take a second look at your home life. Are you feeling emotional fulfillment, stability, security in your life? You will be questioning these things, and it's a good time to do that. The retrograde phase can increase your reflective powers to take steps back and reassess and then, build a stronger foundation. You may seek advice at this time, but I would say wait till the end of the transit if you want to take a full decision, if possible. Spiritual practices can give good results now. You may be forced to reconnect with your home city, with your birth family. Mother's health may be problematic at this time. It's also a good time to reflect on real estate options. Like, if you're thinking about moving, it's a good time to think about that further. If you're planning to purchase a property or sell a property, then I would say wait till October when you can get further clarity. Scorpio, it's your 4th lord returning to your 3rd house. So, fantastic. Good time to take some initiatives, good time to reflect on the recent initiatives that you may have taken and make some revisions there if necessary. You can also find solutions to difficult problems at this time. If you had thought about starting a new project, a new business, it's a good time to plan this out. But perhaps wait till mid-July to take action, because at that time Saturn will return to Capricorn. You'll get substantial results if you're open to those around you, including friends, siblings, neighbors, those in your immediate environment, right? So that includes family if you live with your family. Check all communications at this time though, and don't be quick to act or react. Sagittarius, for you, it's the 2nd, 3rd lord returning to your 2nd house. So this may feel a bit draining for you, this transit. It's a good time to reassess financial matters, good time to save money. Don't take any chances with your finances, I would say. Stick to the status quo. You can see some ups and downs in family life. You may, of course, figure out how to get rid of old debts. But wait to make investments at the end of this transit. Overall, it's an effective way to spend this retrograde period. Overall, an effective way to spend this retrograde period is to reflect on how you spend and save money. Yeah. Capricorn, what's happening for you? It's a difficult transit for you. It's your first, second house lord returning to your first house. So this is the time for you to reflect on your past actions. It's a good time for introspection. Look at your image, your health, your appearance at this time, and make revisions in these areas where necessary. Good time to reconsider your life goals, your life path. This is especially the case if you're a Capricorn moon. It could be a testing time for you if you've neglected your goals, your personal needs. But if you can, wait till the end of the transit to make important decisions. Well, Aquarius, it's your 12th first house lord returning to the 12th house. 12th house is the house of letting go, so this may be a theme at this time. A foreign relocation could also be on the cards. If you are thinking about that, it's a good time to dig deeper and do some research for this. Meditation, voluntary work, charity work, all are supported at this time. Expenses, however, can increase, but you can achieve some good insights on where you are losing energy for no reason, if you reflect on that. So perhaps you are giving your time and energy to some pursuit in your life that's just draining. Yeah, it might be time to let that go. You will think about cutting things from your life at this time, including people, including activities that are draining you, basically. Pisces, what's happening for you? Well, for you, this is good. Whether you see it from the ascendant or whether you see it from moon, Saturn returning to the 11th house is great news. 11th house is the best transit for Saturn. Now, some good advice, beneficial connections could come from networking at this time. Your social life could improve. To make the best of this transit, you have to connect and reconnect with others if you want results. Think about your goals, assess whether they are achievable, assess whether they are practical. It's a good time to reflect on that. It's great time to make plans, organize yourself for the next few years. Yeah. But again, if you want to take big leaps and decisions, I would say wait till the end of the transit. Yeah. So that's all for now, folks. All the very best. Cheers.